failed to get into almost any university except one, and then managed to graduate into a recession in 1990. And I had the stupid idea I wanted to go into finance, and I had no way of getting in. But somehow, eventually, through various serendipitous routes, I ended up at Goldman Sachs later in my career, where I started and ran the hedge fund business in equities and equity derivatives. So that was on the sales side. I then saw the recession coming in 2000, and I wanted to trade it. So I went to my biggest client, GLG Partners, and started and ran the global macro hedge fund there. Did that for a few years, then moved to the Mediterranean coast in Spain, because as you know, lifestyle is very important to me and having a quality of life. So I moved from Spain, started writing Global Macro Investor, my research service, which I've been writing now for 20 years, which is still read by family offices, sovereign wealth funds, all the big hedge funds, etc. And then somewhere in that journey, went through the financial crisis and the European remote nature. They're like, well, there's this weird island called Little Cayman of 150 people. So eventually, about a year later, I went there, bought a piece of land on day 2, and started a crazy journey of building a house on a remote island, which worked out all right. And so since then, I've focused a lot on this crypto space, realizing that macro and crypto were all going to come to this juncture. That really happened in 2020. People started to understand them. We've developed at Global Macro Investor probably the best framework in the world of understanding that macro crypto nexus and what it means. And so I've been down that journey, and it was sometime in 2020, maybe 2021, when some really annoying guy on Bloomberg hits me up and says, you need to look at, I think it was punks. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't get this at all. And so I eventually top blasted, I think, almost perfectly, at Bored Apes. But again, I've kept my ape because this was not a short-term idea. This is a much bigger thing of where the internet is going to go and how we're all going to operate in it, and how valuable these things are going to be to us and these clubs are going to be to us. I mean, you've been a big proponent of this just with punks and the punks chat and punks lunches, brunches, all of that kind of stuff. You can see the power of that community, and I think that is a much bigger thing. I bought nothing again until really, I think it was X-Copy's, what's it called? Max Payne and Friends, because I just thought it was bloody cool. And I'd seen X-Copy, I'd seen everybody making fortunes in this stuff, and I really liked the artwork. So I bought it, having done a lot of work on it, and said, guys, it's nothing to do with you. It's driven by the business cycle. It's lagged. You need the business cycle, like the ISM survey, to be going positive, and all-time high prices in ETH. When those things happen, it all comes back. And here's why I think it's going to happen. So I started laying that out in 2024. But the work to me was so compelling that I distilled it down to one simple thing. At the time, it was a $2 trillion market, the whole of crypto. And if I extrapolate out the log trend to about 10, 12 years, we get to 100 trillion. That would be the largest, fastest accumulation of wealth in all human history. That'd be 98 trillion of wealth. Now, maybe I'm wrong by 50%, it goes to 50 trillion. It's still the largest accumulation of wealth, and observe all written on all of our memories forever. It was one of the biggest, it was the largest global event since World War II. We all were there. And so I thought, you know what, this stuff has real value. And then I met the other guys, the Dimitri, the Fidenzas and the Ringers and all of those, Eric, Snowfro, stuff like that. And I could see that was a whole different movement, which is like art and technology meeting. And anything in technology meeting always is a revolution. And so that's when I started getting in my head, fuck, I need to start buying this stuff. And I simplified it down to my core thesis to start with, to make it easy, which is what is more important, art history or culture? And I said culture. So therefore, I'm just going to buy as much X-Copy and as much Beeple as I could afford. And X-Copy is brilliantly structured because you can start with Max Payne and Friends, which cost very little. And you can go up to an amazing nexus of finance people, crypto people, technologists, artists, musicians, all in one place. And you and I have talked about this, that this cultural moment in time around digital art is something truly special. And you just see it when you go to a few events, you have a few dinners with people. Like we had that one in New York. You're like, you know that people will talk about that dinner in New York or my event at Beeple's place, because over time these people are going, everybody in this space is going to be something much bigger. And so that whole cultural thing has just struck me. I think the other thing that I compare it to is London in the early 2000s. This is when Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin, Blur, Oasis, Ibiza, house music, I mean, Fatboy Slim, I mean, you name it, it was all happening in London. Right? London was like the cultural capital of the world, and you knew it. It was just this amazing feeling where everywhere you went around the world, it was British music, British culture, everything. And London's too big a place to be one degree of separation. You're just never cool enough. But you knew it was around you everywhere. So what you've got is that moment, like all of these hedge fund managers, the Soroses and those guys, they all got together, but they were just money. But imagine if us, I don't think they're in the same league. They're probably a league lower than Meebix and Dick Butts. And you can see these things still retain value and passion, so attention. And usually I love the second cycle trade. The second cycle trade is the best trade. So that's like Solana goes up first cycle, second cycle it gets battle tested, it has Lindy effects, it survives. People remain on chain, activity remains on chain. That buy, you're going to make a lot of money from, and it's been de-risked. That was the same with NFTs. That's when I started buying Xcopy and Beeple. I'm like, I know these aren't going away, and so therefore I'll use that second cycle dip. And I think we're still seeing the emergence of this. I think Mickey buying Punks was a big D, great artist. I don't know how. So you need to get signal from noise. Now, whether that's joining a community where people discuss this stuff and you can learn and absorb, or whether it's following just the kind of attention you see online, that's usually where I get it from. It's just what kind of attention, who's following it, and not in a way of promoting something new. That generally doesn't work. But it's like, if it is an artist that is inexpensive or a project that's inexpensive, who's following it? Like Crypto Dick Butts was a big one for me because it was cheap. It was 0.3 ETH, yet everybody I knew who was an OG in this is really difficult. But art is hard anyway. Even if you've got money, trying to buy art is terrifying. I mean, when you listen to 6529 and his story of trying to buy a Warhol, it was just awful. And realizing he's paid a 50% bid offer spread to the gallery and all of the things. It's not easy. So start with community and then observe, I think.
I think also with art, you can just appreciate it, right? You don't really have to own it. Like majority of people in the world appreciate art through a museum experience. But with digital art, you can just log into one of the cool galleries and different art platforms online and just admire it, take it in, right click, save. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, and you can definitely
if you like the art.
Yeah. And you can be a digital sculpture by Harbor Labs walking around the metaverse as a Meebit. Now, let me go back to...
But imagine, so let's go one step further. We're building the robots. So why is your robot not your Meebit?
We actually do have a very interesting idea from...
But because nobody wants the bloody Optimus robot because it's creepy. But if your Meebit is a character you've chosen and you love and you want to represent you, is walking around your house serving drinks and vacuuming, $1 billion every time they tour. Why? It's cultural nostalgia. It's fucking valuable to every baby boomer. It's exactly the same as why Warhol is valuable. Reason being, what does Warhol represent? Represents the 70s and 60s and early 80s, when the US was like the cultural center of the world. There was a cultural explosion going on. The Warhol factory was at the center of it, and it was amazing. Everybody would go and pay homage, whether it was David Bowie or the Beatles or presidents or whatever. And so they remember that, and therefore Warhols are valuable. To me, Damien Hirst and Banksy.
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.